Bienvenue sur French Made Simple, the place to learn French clearly, confidently, and step by step. Whether you're learning for school, travel, or just for fun, you're in the right place. Last time, we mastered the present tense. Today, we're diving into the Passé Composé, the most common way to talk about completed actions in the past. By the end of this video, you'll be able to confidently say what you did yesterday, last week, or even last year. So what is the Passé Composé? It's one of the most common French past tenses. We use it to talk about completed actions, things that are finished, often at a specific moment in the past. In English, it's like saying, I ate, she left, or we watched a film. For example, j'ai mangé une pomme. I ate an apple. Elle est allée au cinéma. She went to the cinema. The action is done. It's over. And that's why we use the passé composé. In a minute, I'll show you exactly how to build it, and I promise it's easier than it sounds. Okay, let's break down how to form the passé composé step by step. This tense is made up of two parts. An auxiliary verb, either être or avoir, which we've learned how to conjugate in the previous video, le présent de l'indicatif, or the present tense in French. And the second part is the past participle. That's the equivalent of ed in English, like walked or played. Okay, let's say you want to say, I have knocked, or I knocked. Let's start with step one. For most verbs, you use avoir conjugated in the present tense to form the passé composé. Yes, some verbs use être, but we'll come back to that in just a minute. First, let's focus on the most common case, avoir. So far, we have j'ai, or I have in English. Now we move on to step two, the past participle. This is the part you build from your main verb, in this case, frapper, to knock. In English, you add ed to say knocked, which turns your main verb into a past participle. In French, we change the verb ending depending on the verb group. And here's how. For er verbs like frapper, drop the er, add et voilà, frapper becomes frappé. So again, the formula is subject plus avoir in the present tense plus past participle. Just like in English, really. Subject, I, to have, and past participle, knocked. And in French, that gives me j'ai frappé, I have knocked. Easy, right? Now, what about the verbs that end in ir and re? Let's take a look at ir and re verbs. It is exactly the same principle. I still need my subject, avoir in the present tense, and my past participle. For er verbs, we said drop the er, add et. Frapper becomes frappé. Tu as frappé, you have knocked. For ir verbs, drop the ir, add an I, finir becomes fini. Tu as fini, you have finished. For re verbs, drop the re, add you, vendre becomes vendu. Il a vendu, he has sold. Now, here's the twist. Most verbs use avoir in the passé composé, but there's a small group that uses être instead. These are usually verbs that describe movement or a change of state. Let me give you a few examples. Aller, to go, je suis allé, I went. Venir, to come. Tu es venu, you came. Arriver, to arrive. Il est arrivé, he arrived. Partir, to leave. Nous sommes partis, we left. Naître, to be born. Mourir, to die. Elle est née en 1990. She was born in 1990. Il est mort, he died. So you can see the pattern here. It follows exactly the same as avoir, except we're using être. Être plus past participle. Okay, let's talk about past participle agreement. This only matters in some cases, but it's important to get it right. Here's the rule. When you use être as your auxiliary verb, the past participle has to agree with the subject in gender and number. For example, elle est allée, she went. Because elle, the subject, is feminine, we add an E to the past participle. Aller with an E. Another example, ils sont partis, they left. Because il is masculine plural, we add an S to make parti. Now, what about avoir? With avoir, the past participle does not change, unless there's a direct object before the verb, but don't worry about that just yet if you're a beginner. You can usually keep it simple, no agreement needed with avoir. So remember, être equals agree with the subject. Avoir, no agreement in most cases. Let's recap with two examples. Elle a mangé une pomme. No agreement here, because we're using avoir as the auxiliary. Elle est arrivée en retard. Here, we need to agree, because we're using être. Therefore, we'll need to add E to arriver. Simple, right? On to the next part. Now that you know how to form regular past participles, let's look at some common irregular ones. Unfortunately, not all French verbs follow the nice, neat et, I, or U rule. Some verbs are irregular, and their past participles have to be memorized. But don't worry, we'll start with the most useful ones. Here are 5 common irregular past participles. Avoir means to have, and its past participle is eu. For example, j'ai eu un problème. I had a problem. Être translates as to be. The past participle is était. For example, il a été malade. He was sick. Faire means to do or to make. The past participle of faire is fait. For example, elle fait ses devoirs. She did her homework. Prendre is to take, and its past participle is pris. For example, nous avons pris le train. We took the train. Venir means to come. The past participle is venu. For example, tu es venu hier? Did you come yesterday? Venir uses être in the passé composé. You'll see these verbs all the time in everyday French, so it's worth taking a few minutes to learn them by heart. We'll keep adding more irregular verbs in the future, but for now, let's focus on these 5. Before we finish, let's look at some common mistakes learners make with the passé composé, so you can avoid them from the start. Mistake number 1. Confusing when to use être or avoir. Most verbs use avoir, so that's your default. But some verbs, especially those involving movement or a change of state, use être instead. For example, j'ai allé au cinéma. This is incorrect, because aller uses être, not avoir. The correct version is Je suis allé au cinéma. I went to the cinema. If you're not sure, ask yourself, is this verb about coming, going, arriving, leaving, being born, or dying? If yes, use être. Mistake number 2. Forgetting agreement with être verbs. Remember, when you use être, the past participle needs to agree with the subject in gender and number. For example, elle est allée au marché. Nope, elle is feminine, so we need to add an I at the end of aller. Elle est allée au marché. She went to the market. That's correct. Ils sont partis. It's ils, plural, so we need to add an S. Ils sont partis. They left. With avoir, we usually don't need to make the participle agree unless there's a direct object before the verb. But that's for later. Mistake number 3. Mixing passé composé and imparfait. This one's really common. Using the wrong tense when telling a story. Use passé composé for things that happened, completed actions. Use imparfait for descriptions, feelings, or things that were happening over time. For example, il faisait froid et il pleuvait. Alors, j'ai pris un taxi. It was cold and raining, so I took a taxi. Faisait and pleuvait are imparfaits. They're giving background details. J'ai pris is passé composé, because that's a specific action you did. We'll go deeper into the difference between those two tenses in the next video. So to recap, don't mix up avoir and être. Don't forget agreement with être verbs. Don't mix passé composé and imparfait when telling a story. Mistakes are part of learning, so don't worry. Just keep practicing and listening to real French, and it will soon feel natural. Here's an exercise for you to practice. Fill in the blanks with the correct passé composé form of the verbs in brackets. And that's it for today's video on the passé composé. Now you know how to form it using avoir or être, how to make your past participles, the trickiest irregular verbs, and how to avoid the most common mistakes. Don't worry if it's not perfect yet. The more you see, hear, and use the passé composé, the easier it gets. So keep practicing. If this video helped you, give it a like or subscribe for more bite-sized grammar lessons. And feel free to share it with someone learning French too. In the comments, tell me, what's one thing you did this week in French? Try to write a sentence using the passé composé. I'll check a few and give you feedback. And next time, we'll dive into the imparfait, how to talk about what used to happen or what was going on in the past. Merci beaucoup for watching. À très bientôt.